September 10, 2023. On the glittering Las Vegas Strip, inside the MGM Grand, slot machines froze mid-spin. A blackjack display blinked into darkness, instantly erasing a high roller's $50,000 win in the opulent lobby. Hundreds of guests were trapped in endless lines. Why? Because the digital room keys had failed, rendering the entire system useless. The colossal $14 billion MGM Resorts empire had been brutally reduced to pen, paper, and sheer panic. The total damage was 11 days offline, a staggering $100 million lost. All triggered by one single 5-minute phone call. How could a mere phone call possibly black out the heart of the Las Vegas Strip? And who, precisely, was the architect of this digital chaos? 4 days earlier, in a modest suburban bedroom thousands of miles from Vegas, a 19-year-old hacker took a deep breath and dialed a number. He was one of a loose crew of English-speaking teens and 20-somethings. They gathered on Telegram under the moniker Scattered Spider. His target was MGM's IT help desk. This was the weakest link in a $14 billion empire. The young caller had done his homework meticulously. He knew MGM used OCTA for identity security. He was armed with a meticulously crafted script of his own. But there was one crucial thing he knew that MGM didn't. He spoke calmly, injecting a hint of manufactured urgency into his voice. "Hey, this is James from IT. I'm locked out of my OCTA account and my MFA token isn't working. Can you help me reset it? It's kind of an emergency." On the other end, the help desk agent paused for a moment. It was late on a weeknight. The agent was trained to be helpful, perhaps a bit too helpful. The caller rattled off personal details. To convincingly prove his identity, he listed an employee ID number, a favorite pet's name, and the last digits of a phone number. They had scraped all of it from LinkedIn and various old data breaches. The agent, hearing what sounded like a colleague desperately in need, bypassed the usual stringent protocols. What the agent failed to realize was that he had just handed the digital keys to a teenager 3,000 miles away. A security question or two, a quick reset link, and bingo. The self-assured kid on the phone had bluffed his way directly into MGM's OCTA administrator portal. He could barely mute his mic fast enough to avoid letting slip a loud, victorious laugh. On a Telegram chat, he typed 3 simple words: "We're in." A dozen other young hackers, scattered across the US and UK, immediately lit up their screens in response. What happened next would cost MGM far more than anyone had ever imagined. This group had pulled off similar social engineering pranks before. They had hacked telecom companies, even critical infrastructure. But a casino? This was, by far, their biggest gamble yet. As the help desk agent cheerfully concluded, "You should be all set now." The hacker couldn't help but grin wickedly. MGM had absolutely no idea what had just occurred, but this was only step 1 of the operation. The real break-in was only starting. Armed with the keys to OCTA, the crew suddenly held MGM's digital master key ring. This gave them passwords, single sign, and administrator accounts. It was the digital skeleton key to a multi-billion-dollar fortune. They exchanged a flurry of frantic messages, confirming, "Game on." In Las Vegas, no alarms were blaring. Guards were alerted to the intrusion. The heist was entirely invisible to the naked eye, and it all began with a polite, almost anxious phone call from a kid. They had the keys, but what they found next would make a $30 million ransom look like mere pocket change. What on earth could be worth more than that? Minutes after the call ended, Scattered Spider pivoted deeper into MG network. They moved through the OCTA admin console with practiced ease. They immediately created new credentials for themselves and disabled multi-factor protections. It was akin to a thief, not only stealing the master key but also turning off the alarm system on the way inside. One hacker, seated in a dim London flat, couldn't help but whisper under his breath, "Access granted." Now, they began to explore the network's deepest secrets. They slipped effortlessly into MGM's internal systems, servers, databases, and cloud drives. They moved swiftly and quietly, leaving barely a trace. The hackers were acutely aware that their window of opportunity might be tragically short. They had 72 hours before MGM would notice, or so they confidently thought. It was Friday, and MGM's IT staff were wrapping up their workweek, blissfully unaware that intruders were actively prowling their digital corridors. In a secure database, the crew struck pure gold. Then they found it, the single file that would change the entire game. they located the High Roller database. This was a treasure trove of the casino's biggest spenders, including their names, contact info, bankroll figures, even their social security numbers and preferences. 4 penthouse suites were exposed. Imagine what this is truly worth, one of them marveled. Another hacker stumbled upon something yet equally valuable. The actual source code for MGM's slot machine software that directly controls the odds and payouts of thousands of slot machines. It now sat compressed in a zip file on a hacker's laptop. It was an ironic twist of fate. Months earlier, some members of Scattered Spider had jokingly discussed performing a real-life Ocean's 13. This involved making all the slots in Vegas hit jackpot simultaneously. They had joked they'd never even watched the movie. The irony was not lost on them. That initial stunt proved too impractical to execute, but stealing the secret sauce behind the slots, Scattered Spider's haul ballooned to a stunning 6 terabytes of data. It was an unprecedented, smashing grab. They had taken employee records, customer databases, financial documents, and confidential code. If data is the new gold, they had successfully cracked Fort Knox. They compressed and copied the files, meticulously covering their digital tracks as they went. 0.6 terabytes stolen, but they almost missed one crucial detail. Occasionally, one hacker would issue a chilling warning in the chat. Don't get greedy, move to the next server. The fear of detection loomed over them, but the adrenaline rush was spiking violently. It was Friday night, and it was decision time. Should they stay hidden and steal more data, or should they unleash their digital nuke, the ransom? They knew one thing for certain. If MGM security woke up to their presence, the party would be immediately over. Unbeknownst to the hackers, back in Vegas, an IT administrator had noticed some odd OC activity. An unrecognized device was logged onto an admin account. MGM security team began to stir uneasily. A few wary glances were exchanged at screens. The hackers sensed it too. Their silent heist might soon turn into a desperate sprint. One of them typed 3 final words. Time to detonate. But detonate what, precisely? And what happens when a $33 billion company finally realizes it's under a full-scale attack? Sunday, in the pre-dawn hours, MGM's security team scrambled frantically to isolate and eject whatever intruder they suspected was in their network. In doing so, they inadvertently triggered the deadly trap Scattered Spider had laid. The hackers, anticipating a crackdown, unleashed the Alpha, also known as Black Cat, ransomware. This was not ordinary ransomware, as MGM failed to realize. One by one, critical systems across the empire started locking up permanently. At 6:01 a.m., a database server went down, encrypted beyond recovery. By 7 a.m., slot machine control systems across all MGM casinos blinked off. Their screens went blue with error messages. At 7:15 a.m., hotel reservation computers froze completely. Check-in desks ground to a dead halt. By 8 a.m., house security feeds, payroll, and even the digital locks on hotel room doors were entirely paralyzed. Then, something happened that no one expected. Not even the hackers themselves. MGM's glamorous resorts were violently dragged back into the analog age. Within a matter of hours, someone had essentially flipped the off switch on the entire Vegas Strip. Through all of this chaos, Scattered Spider's members watched the fallout remotely, feeling both exhilarated and deeply anxious. One hacker munched on cold pizza in a dark room. He watched a shaky Twitter video of tourists wandering the Bellagio floor in utter confusion. He couldn't resist a slow smile spreading across his face. A company valued at $14 billion was brought to its knees by a single 5-minute phone call. That's one for the history books, he thought with satisfaction. Yet, this was far more than a simple prank. It was high-stakes extortion. And the next move was making that fact known by Sunday afternoon. MGM's executives received a chilling message. The hackers introduced themselves under a unified banner of Alpha and Scattered Spider. They spelled out their brutal deal. We have your data, all 6 terabytes of it. Your systems are locked. Pay $30 million in cryptocurrency, or else, well, the or else would arrive in exactly 48 hours. They warned. To prove their sheer seriousness, the attackers shared a devastating snippet of the stolen data. It was a spreadsheet of MGM employees with names, social security numbers, and every last personal detail, the kind of personal information that truly hits home hard. It was one thing to simply freeze slot machines. It was another thing entirely to threaten to expose thousands of people's identities. This was high-stakes poker. And the hackers had just gone Elon. MGM's leadership faced an agonizing, impossible dilemma. As the sun slowly set on the strip, the question burned: do we pay and hope to restore operations quietly, or do we refuse, risking a prolonged blackout and a massive public breach of trust? It was a damned few do, damned-if-you-dan single quotes to wager of staggering proportions. All the while, the FBI was now deeply involved. They raced against the clock to trace the attackers, even as the hackers continued to taunt MGM through anonymous online posts. The standoff had truly begun. In 24 hours, MGM would make a choice that ultimately cost them $100 million. MGM decided to call the hackers' bluff directly. By Monday, September 11th, the company publicly acknowledged a cybersecurity issue, but they stayed completely silent on the ransom demand. Behind closed doors, they had already informed the hackers. No deal. It was a colossal mistake. The hackers had a plan B that would cost MGM triple the ransom. If the hackers expected a quick payout, like their last victim, Caesar's Palace, Caesars had quietly paid $15 million just days earlier to avoid this same pain. They were now dealing with a wildcard. MGM was refusing to fold its hand. The consequences were immediate and absolutely brutal. As Monday rolled into Tuesday and Wednesday, the casinos remained partly crippled. For 10 excruciating days, MGM's IT army worked around the clock. Their mission was to purge the ransom and rebuild shattered systems from the ground up. Every hour of downtime meant millions of dollars in lost revenue. VIP guests were offered free suites and meals to soothe their anger. It was a desperate, costly attempt to stem the financial bleeding. But it was costing a fortune. Gamblers wandered next door to rival casinos, taking their money with them. Wedding parties panicked as their electronic reservations vanished into thin air. But the worst was about to happen in the elevators at one MGM property. Elevator doors briefly stopped working altogether. Management hurriedly began stocking bottled water in all elevators. It was a surreal, desperate precaution in case anyone got permanently stuck. On the casino floors, the scene was surreal and silent. Slot machines that once jingled with constant payouts sat dark and menacing. Their screens simply read out of service. Online, the hackers doubled down on their threats. The Alpha Black Cat ransom gang posted a blistering manifesto. They mockingly detailed MGM's incompetence and threatened far worse. Their message was crystal clear: if a deal was not reached, we shall carry out additional attacks. The nuclear option was threatening to dump all of MGM's stolen customer data online. Every high roller's information, 6 terabytes of secrets, about to be exposed to the world. But MGM held absolutely firm in its resolve. Paying the ransom would violate their every corporate instinct. It would only encourage more attacks in the future. So, the company gambled everything on its own recovery. It was a monumental, costly bet. By the end of that week, MGM had lost approximately $100 million. This included lost gaming revenue, free comps, and canceled bookings, not to mention the colossal effort and cost of the tech recovery. All of this, just to avoid paying a $30 million ransom? A ransom that, even if paid, came with zero guarantees of system recovery. In the murky, treacherous world of cybercrime, the hackers, for their part, leaked just enough data. They wanted to demonstrate that they were completely serious. A chunk of employee records here, an internal email thread there. They were sending an undeniable message: we own you. It was a desperate battle of wills, stretching day by day with no clear victor in sight. As the siege dragged on mercilessly, Vegas officials worried this crisis would become a dangerous copycat magnet. Every casino was immediately put on red alert. Guests began checking out early, spooked by the very real demonstration. It proved that even the glittering, seemingly invincible casinos of the Strip could be brought to their knees. All of this was accomplished by kids in hoodies. Scattered Spider were already becoming semi-legendary in underground circles. They quietly boasted about how they took down MGM, but law enforcement was hot on their digital trail. International investigators were painstakingly gathering clues. A reckoning, they knew, was coming for the group. Yet, as of that chaotic week in September, the hackers seemed untouchable. They were ghosts who had literally phoned it in, and they had made off with a king's ransom of stolen data. It was an unprecedented showdown between old-school Vegas grit and new-school cyber heist tactics. The hackers had one final card left to play. And this one would make global headlines. What kind of data would make MGM's biggest whales abandon ship overnight? And why did one hacker suddenly go completely dark on Telegram? By the following Monday, one full week after the hack began, MGM's teams finally began to restore critical systems. Slot machines rebooted with cheerful, welcoming chimes. Digital keys sputtered back to life across the resorts. The sportsbooks came back online, just in time for the next NFL Sunday. Battered but finally operational, MGM announced they would not pay any ransom. They framed their stance as one of principled resilience against crime. For guests and gamblers, life slowly returned to a shaky normal. Check-in lines shrank, and jackpots jingled once more. On the surface, the Vegas glow seemed to triumph over the temporary glitch. But behind the scenes, absolutely nothing was truly normal. The breach's fallout would take months, even years, to fully unravel. This included costly security upgrades, lawsuits, and intense regulatory probes. The scattered Spider crew, emboldened by their incredible success, continued to boast in their online haunts. They were part of a new breed of ransomware affiliate. They were not 1980s mafiosi or nation-state spies. They were just kids, expertly exploiting corporate customer service culture. They had weaponized human trust itself, turning a help desk's simple kindness into MGM's catastrophic Achilles heel, as one cyber security analyst astutely put it. A company with tens of millions in security tech was undone by a 10-minute conversation. It was a chilling and potent reminder that in the end, humans, fallible, helpful, overworked humans, they are often the weakest, most exploitable link in the chain. And these hackers knew exactly how to tug that link to their advantage. In the aftermath, it came to light that some members of Scattered Spider were astonishingly young. Authorities arrested a 17-year-old in the UK. He was believed to be the very voice who had conned the MGM help desk in the US. A suspected co-conspirator, barely out of high school, was picked up. He had $27 million in Bitcoin stashed away in a digital wallet. The once invincible Phantom crew was now on the run. Their identities were being unmasked one by law enforcement, but, for every member caught, dozens more remained in the shadows. They were all learning from these high-profile exploits. One thing, however, was crystal clear. The era of the teenage hacker sticking up multinational corporations was now here, and it was forcing a hard, costly rethink of security. This impacted every boardroom, on the Strip and far beyond. September 2023's casino cyber siege thus ended. It concluded not with a cinematic explosion, but with a weary, collective exhale of relief. MGM's CEO admitted in a candid moment of honesty, "We were completely in the dark about our own properties for days." The once cocky Vegas titan now wore a visible scar. All casinos, hospitals, and banks were officially put on notice, and Scattered Spider's chilling message resonated across the digital landscape. If we can breach Vegas, where is truly safe?